Do you get easily pulled out of the saddle? Do you feel like your horse is never in front of your leg? Are you tired of being told to sit up and it's just not working? Well, I'm here to help you have a quick tip for an exercise you can do off the horse to improve your ride. So often riders are told that they have to strengthen their core in order to sit better on the horse and be more effective. But strengthening the core doesn't necessarily get to the muscles that we really need. So let's talk about a little bit of anatomy so I can explain it to you and give you a great exercise that you can do to keep yourself more organized, more upright, and more effective in the saddle. So the first thing I want you to understand is that you have a pelvis, and this is the top of the pelvis. Here's the seat bone, here's the pubic bone, and this is your tailbone. And more importantly, this is your hip joint. So your hip joint is the biggest joint in your body, or actually your knee's a little bigger, but your hip joint's a really big joint, and it's super important to riding. And we need to organize the pelvis in relation to the hip. To do that, we have to understand a certain amount of anatomy to keep that organization working properly. So we're just going to go and look at some muscles here. Again, here's the top of the pelvis. I'll just switch over to blue. Okay, your tailbone's here, your seat bone now is underneath here, and your hip socket is inside. This is the greater trochanter, so we get an idea of where the hip joint is. And we need to be able to keep the body upright in relation to the femur, even if we have a bit more of an angle at our knee. Okay, if we look at it from behind, we've got the top of the pelvis, the sacrum and tailbone. Here's your greater trochanter. Your hip joint is in here, right? And then what's really important to notice is, and I'll draw it on this side, is this is your seat bone. And there's a large muscle attached to that sit bone. So this muscle needs to engage to a certain degree to keep the organization of the pelvis so that the femur can stay in the proper place in relation to the torso so that the hip is open. In other words, if you're not engaging what I call your peaches, the tendency is for the pelvis to tip a little forward or be too far back instead of being upright so that your hip isn't working really well. So I call this your peaches, and it's just a simple, easy term, and all my students know it because I can just, engage your peaches. It's really simple. But what it does is it helps keep that pelvis organized and upright properly. So here's your simple exercise to just get that sorted out. And all it requires is a wall. So it doesn't even require a lot of stuff. Okay. Basically what you want to do is find a wall that you can put your foot against. Now, if you need to hold on to something like a chair in front of you, that's totally fine. And you want to make sure that your foot is basically, I'm going to get to the better picture here. Your foot has to be vertical without your heel turning in or out. Because if your heel is turning in or out, you're engaging different muscles, not the ones we're trying to get to. So it's really important that you have your foot upright. And then you want to be far enough away from the wall that you have a right angle. Okay, so you notice that the distance between the wall and where you're going to be standing is about the length of your calf and foot. So that's a really easy measure. If you need to, you just kind of hop forward a little bit, and you'll see how the femur is vertical, the thigh is vertical in relation to the other leg. So this is just really important that you're far enough away. If you're too close, you're going to have to bend the knee and have the foot higher or too low. And if you're too far away, it's just a lot of strain and you're not going to engage the muscles that we're trying to sort out. So it's just easy enough, and just hop away a little bit if you're too close until you feel like you've got a nice right angle between the thigh and the calf. Okay. And then basically you just push your heel against the wall. And as you push your heel against the wall, think of your hip going forward. And that's going to engage those peaches that we talked about. Now, if instead of that, you angle your foot a little bit, and you can see how this foot's now angled. It's not straight vertical, okay? It's going on a line that way. Then it's not going to have the same effect because your knee is going to drift out a little bit. You're going to be engaging other muscles. So it's really important that your foot's vertical. The other thing that's really important, and you can see here with the stripes, it makes it so obvious that this rider has tipped her pelvis forward and her thigh is upright, but the pelvis is not properly in line. She's a little bit close here. You can see how that other leg is not perfectly in line with the femur on the leg she's got against the wall. And so now the hip is drifting back instead of pushing it forward. So it's just really important to be far enough away from the wall so that your foot is vertical. You're the distance of your calf away from the wall. Your foot that's on the wall, that thigh is vertical and in line with your other leg. And then you press your hip forward in front of you. And of course, if you need to use a chair, that's totally fine. So this will just help you figure out how to engage the proper muscles to keep the pelvis organized. And just always want to remember that, you do this a little bit before you get on your horse, and then of course, enjoy the ride.